welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk, trivia, and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. I am one of your hosts, Tone, and I'm joined by
John
and
Anthony.
Hey, right on. And this week for Chop Talk, we're going to share some news regarding a Vertigo remake, potentially.
Dun, dun, dun.
Maybe a little bit more. Then we're going to continue with Horror Trivial Pursuit. And for our main discussion, we're kicking
going
off.
ape shit.
Yeah. I don't
Apes
remember what
strong
are
together.
we calling it?
Planet of the April.
Planet of the April. Okay. Or April of the Apes. What was the other one?
Planet of the April.
All right.
Those were the options. It's interchangeable. We're talking about Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Yes, we're getting things kicked off with Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So
Rise. rise from your grave, and then fall directly back into your grave.
too many rises. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to rise that Chop Talk logo.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into the news, how are you guys?
Doing well.
Wet.
Wow.
What?
Let me explain. It's continuing to apocalyptically storm here. And it's got me real mad depressed. But you know what always makes me feel better? Some monkey business.
Hey!
That's what we're into this month.
We
so
had
I'm
like
excited.
5 straight days of sun. And it was fantastic. I even went to work yesterday after being off for a week and was like, this isn't so bad. And then today I was like, fuck everybody. I don't want to do anything.
Well, after tomorrow, we're supposed to be in the clear for a while. So I'm very hopeful that we not only get a few straight days of sun, but a few gay days of sun too.
Yeah. In every sense of the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But before, well, I don't know if you guys said how you're doing. How are you doing? Because I care.
Hanging out. Good enough.
Down the street.
Yeah.
Same old thing you did last week.
Yeah.
Literally.
Found out today I might have ADD.
You
and I was like, what'd you say?
The tragic diagnoses keep rolling in.
So, explains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like, do you ever do this during conversations? And I was like, oh, yeah.
You're like, what? Squirrel.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I was enjoying the sun. Sad that it went away for a day, but I'm glad for it to come back. Yeah, the weather in Modesto has been kind of shitty of late, and I would love for it to
That's our little plug for our bonus episode in the Creep Cult where we're talking about Eraserhead.
Jane Lynch.
Jane Lynch, yep.
That'd be a very weird episode. Weirder possibly than what we just covered. I think it's a hard.
Love her and Party Down. But what I was going to say is before we get into the news, I think that we should take a brief little detour into John Wick territory.
Okay.
Because that's the new hot topic. We've all seen it now. So I think it would be nice for us to give our quick little 5-minute thoughts on it since we're not doing a full review / episode on it. Even though at this point, it's pretty much a fucking science fiction movie with the crazy shit that goes down in these. But yeah, I think I was the most recent to see it. Mm-hmm. And I went and saw it Friday night.
So and we saw it on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and despite the guy next to me being one of those moviegoers who feels like they have to vocalize at the end of every single thing that happens and go, mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that motherfucker. Yeah,
really?
Coward. Yeah, yeah. Throughout the entire movie. Outside of that, you know, I thought that it was a pretty good theatrical experience. I had a great seat. I was glad I was able to see it in Dolby Atmos because that sound was pretty fucking crazy. But all around you. Overall, I talked to you a little bit about this. I think that the mistake that we made, or the mistake that I made, was watching the previous John Wick movies going into this one. Because I think if you watch them back to back, they start to feel a little bit exhausting and repetitive. But all that said, still had a great time with the new one. Still think it's pretty fucking badass. Keanu is amazing. Donnie Yen, excuse me, is better than anybody else at playing a blind martial arts master. And yeah, I had a really good time with it. A lot of people, I feel a little bit left out because I was a little bit colder on the movie by like half a letterbox star than the majority of the rest of the entire planet. calling it like the best action movie ever and all that stuff.
I disagree with that. I think that it feels more of a repeat than the other three did to me. One feels like its own thing. Two kind of feels like a continuation of that, and then three is kind of the pinnacle. And this feels like a very similar movie to three, where even there's a lot of the same plot points to this one. But like you said,
when you laid it out for me after, I was like, oh shit, I did not realize how beat for beat they're pretty much the same movie.
Yeah, but just like more of it. And so they've gotten a lot further away. I think that it's, either with three and this one are kind of like the weaker ones, but even that, like the weaker ones, they're all still banger movies. I just don't think you're going to top the first one. I think if any of the four were contended for best action movie, it would be one.
Yeah. I think
it's gorgeous.
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing, though, is that the reason why you're seeing a lot of people saying 5 out of 5, best action movie ever made, yada, 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 is not because the storyline is the most entertaining or makes the most sense or isn't a rehash or is a rehash of previous movies. It's that everything action-wise in this is turned up to 11. And I think that it does that very successfully. I think that the fact that in his 50s, Keanu Reeves is out here doing 90% of the stunts, where one of them is, spoiler alert, you can skip ahead 10 seconds if you need to, jumping out of a fucking building onto a van. It's like, if you count up all of the things that are like, oh yeah, that should have easily killed poor Keanu Reeves, there's a lot more than 10% of the stunts that are done that are like, that's like, you could have died easily, that he's out here doing. So, I mean, I'm very impressed with Keanu's performance here, but Donnie Yen steals the show, and I think that I really enjoyed Bill Skarsgård in this.
My only issue was that he didn't quite have whatever accent he was trying to do nailed down, and it made it impossible to tell what he was saying sometimes. But outside of that, I mean, I love Bill Skarsgård and everything.
He's very menacing. Clown. He's a very creepy presence. I think that he nailed it, and like he was very magnetic anytime he was on screen. But Donnie Yen was just chef's kiss.
Yeah, it was nice to see Clancy Brown for a little bit. It was nice to see Lance Reddick in one of his final performances. A little bittersweet, obviously. Everybody was great, and you can see where they put that budget in terms of shooting on gorgeous fucking locations, building an entire club with waterfalls for walls to fight in. The way this is lit, all of the references to, I've been talking a lot recently about Buster Keaton, and not only do they show a Buster Keaton clip in the second movie, they show one in the third movie. And so I was surprised that, as far as I could tell, they didn't show one in this one, but I think you can tell.
But they had Keanu, fall down fucking 1,000 stairs.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
A whole 2 times.
I feel like this one's a lot more like blatantly slapstick than the other three.
There's a great like whole third act homage to the Warriors that I thought was fantastic.
The top-down isometric view.
Very Hotline Miami.
Yeah, it was the exact reference that I made because Nick and I talked about it directly after, and I was like, it reminded me of Hotline Miami, in like the best way possible.
Yeah,
and I love how well that shot works, how seamlessly everything, how you're still able to pull two people's story from inside of that. Because there's two different people who you're kind of following during that. Like I said, I also don't agree that it's the greatest action film ever made. I do think that it has some of the best action sequences that have ever been put to film, and that is one of them.
Yeah.
Did you feel, and you've seen all three, right? Did you feel, 4, right, but the previous 3, that it was just like not as brutal as the other ones?
I don't think so.
There
are people getting set on fire, like...
I don't know. There's that scene in 3 when he fucking stabs a dude through his skull and then like goes into his eye, and that whole knife fight in 3 is like, oh fuck. And I don't feel like there was like a real big like moment in this.
I mean, you're telling me that having to pull your hand out like this,
that was okay. Yeah, that's a good example of one.
Yeah,
that shit was tight.
Yeah. And there are a few scenes that are sprinkled throughout. I would have to watch it again because I'm now a week removed from my viewing experience. But like I said, there was still enough brutality for me to really be impacted by it. But I think they really upped their game in like the operating around vehicles, like people getting thrown across rooms and shit. Like
they always joked in the commentaries for the previous films that John Wick's only weakness was getting hit by cars. because he gets hit by a car or two cars, or as the movies progress, 1,700 cars.
This movie, they flip it on the air. They're like, this time, car get hit by John Wick.
Yeah. I saw somebody the other day post like, this is incredible. Like, has there ever been a franchise where the fourth movie is the best one? And somebody just responded with a gif of Tom Hardy as Max from Fury Road, just like, in his car, like going like, it's happened before. But I do think it is incredibly impressive that this franchise just kind of came out of nowhere, not as a franchise originally. And I remember when the trailer for the original John Wick came out, I remember making fun of it because I thought the name was stupid. I was like, oh, Keanu Reeves, like he was cool as Neo, but like this just looks goofy as shit. And then that first movie came out and it was so badass. And for it to have gotten to this point where this movie is doing incredibly well, and it's also not a superhero property as much as John Wick, feels invincible at this point.
Yeah.
I just think that, as much as this feels like it's feels kind of like a superhero thing, it's still real people doing real fights in real places, and it is just madly impressive. So even though I wasn't as in love with it as a lot of other people, I think on a rewatch, I'll probably warm to it. The only thing that kind of like I thought of as I was leaving was the only problem is the first one especially is a great rewatch movie because it's a quick like 90 minutes or whatever. You're in and out. That movie moves. This one I'm going to be a little bit less like, do I really want to put on a 3-hour John Wick movie?
It goes by at a clip though.
No, the pacing's great, and I'm not saying that it dragged at any point for me or anything. I'm just saying that like if I'm sitting at home, would I rather put on John Wick 1 or 2, which is a lot shorter and I can get through quicker and kind of get the same vibe, or do I want to, so I think there will be less rewatches of this one. But when it hits streaming, I think I am going to want to show it to my sister or show it to Adrian and be like, yo, check out this badass shit. Keanu Reeves is the best.
Yeah.
Right but on. Yeah, we want to get into some news. I'll try to move through it at a clip. There's nothing real crazy this week anyway, but you had mentioned
I got it.
Earlier that there are some rumblings in the entertainment sphere about a possible remake to Vertigo. This is being written by Stephen Knight, who worked on Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders?
Yeah, and has been a guy in Hollywood for a while. And Robert Downey Jr. is eyeing to star in the lead role. I think that's the thing that's selling a lot of people whose immediate reaction to this would be, what the fuck, no?
I think that's an interesting opinion from people, because how many people do you know actually have seen Vertigo? Like, didn't we just watch it for the first time recently?
Well, I haven't talked to anybody outside of us and Twitter, and Twitter is full, at least the people that I'm following on Twitter are all people who are like the biggest film snobs in the world, like I am, and so they obviously know and care about Hitchcock and Vertigo.
Right.
So I haven't really asked, I haven't, Billy Eichner, asked people out on the street about, what are your thoughts on Vertigo?
Name a woman.
You a fan of Vertigo? Name all the tall things. But yeah, I mean, I just think that this is going to be very interesting if it does end up happening, because I don't know where there is to go with this. Because Vertigo is, not just in my opinion, but in most people's opinion, outside of Citizen Kane, is typically named the greatest movie of all time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they regularly swap places at the top of most.
Godfather also in that conversation. But yeah, I'm firmly in the nah, I'm good territory, but if they make it and people say that it's good, I'll check it out. But otherwise, I'm not really interested. And I don't think that Robert Downey Jr. being involved adds any value to that for me.
I can see him playing that type of... I mean, I've seen him play similar type of characters in stuff that isn't Marvel related.
Yeah.
So I can see him playing the Jimmy Stewart type of character. But
you got to do it. We're already here.
It's... yeah, so...
There you go. You got it.
I don't think I got what I wanted.
Oh.
I'm also just like, nothing I say is going to stop it from happening, so might as well just sit back and see.
Robert Downey Jr.
I'm into it. I
Yeah.
think Robert Downey Jr. is really charming, and I would like to see him break away from the Marvel stuff and do something that really stuck with us. Not sure this is it, but at this point, it's like can't get any worse than Gus Van Sant. So
True. Speaking of things returning that we never wanted to see sequels to, an update on The Exorcist. David Gordon Green's The Exorcist.
It's supposed to be doing a trilogy, right? And Linda Blair.
Yep, that's the news. Linda Blair is, in fact, returning for the forthcoming, and I believe it just wrapped filming or started filming, one of those two. But it's happening. Nothing we can do to stop it. But Linda Blair's involved.
Here's why I like this news. Because Jason said if I can get whoever back for The Exorcist, I can get England back for Freddy.
Yeah.
And so that gives me hope that we can get one more round with England.
Yeah, and I also think that obviously it's England's decision at the end of the day if he feels that he's too old, but I just rewatched all of Stranger Things 4, and he obviously has his brief little one-episode segment, and, I mean, even in that little bit, that dude was scary as fuck. I think it actually adds more to it that he's older, because he has, like, an older kind of, no offense, England, creepier face.
When I thought that he was voicing Vecna, I was more into it than when I found out that he wasn't voicing Vecna.
Well, it didn't even dawn on me. I don't know if we mentioned this, and I was just reminded of it, but it's funny. He sounds like, obviously, Freddy Krueger, but Vecna, the voice that Jamie Campbell Bower is doing, sounds exactly like Jackie Earle Haley's Freddy Krueger from the remake, especially when he's talking to Nancy, when he's like, Nancy, and he's like doing the whole voice. But anyway, that makes me a little bit more excited about this, that Linda Blair is coming back. It's not like she never did Exorcist sequels. She was in the second one. And
The Heretic.
Yeah, but I would highly recommend, if you like The Exorcist and want to see a sort of sequel thing redone and you like Gina Davis,
the show,
go check out that first season of the show.
On Fox.
In terms
you Fox
of...
with it? I would. I did Fox with it.
We talked about John Wick. I mentioned this to you. Obviously, now that this movie is doing so well, things are full steam ahead for the Ballerina movie with Ana de Armas.
I think that it's already like shooting or something, right? Or done? Like
Yeah.
it's well on its way.
Yeah, and it is set between the events of John Wick 3 and 4, I believe. Keanu's coming back for it. Ian McShane, I think, is coming back for it. So there will be John Wick people in that. And then also, it looks like the prequel series, The Continental, is eyeing a potential fall release on Peacock. Apparently,
Dude, they've been talking about this since either the first or the second one came out, because we've been talking about this.
Yeah.
So I thought it wasn't happening.
Well, when I mentioned it to you the other day, where I was like, dude, they really missed out on that idea of like doing the Continental and exploring different hotels around the world, like we have kind of done in the movies.
They should have just, whatever budget they put into that movie Hotel Artemis, they should have just put that towards this instead.
Well, because it's, with any of these streaming services, they're just putting movie level budgets into these shows. And especially with this, it says it's supposed to be a 3-night event, like limited series that follows a young Winston in the 70s.
Yeah.
As a hitman hotelier. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I like this universe, and I think that it may be one of those situations where the show kind of helps me. It might help some of the like weird story elements of the movie sit a little bit better if I get more of like a fleshed out version of like what the Continental and that whole world is all about. But you guys fans of Egg Boy? Robert Eggers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I sent this to you the other day, but Nosferatu, giving me chills, is fucking happening. There is now a website. The only thing that's on the website is just Nosferatu by Robert Eggers and then the cast. But there's a website for it. So that means that it's happening and the movie's happening. So there's that. And then
a Nosferatu and a Frankenstein coming up quick. Hopefully.
Damn.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Damn, I hadn't even thought about that, bro.
Then they cross over.
That's so cool. Classic Universal monsters. Come.
Dark universe.
The Come universe. And then I didn't find out about this until
There's ectoplasm everywhere.
until probably like 15 minutes before we did this. But the X-Files, which I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
And we've done, I believe, a roulette on the X-Files in the past episode. We are going to be getting an animated X-Files series.
Not that exciting.
It's a spin-off comedy series called The X-Files Albuquerque, but apparently that's something people have known about for a while. The thing that people didn't know about until this interview with Chris Carter, the original creator of The X-Files, is he says... he says, I just spoke to a young man, Ryan Coogler, who is going to remount the X-Files with a diverse cast, got his work cut out for him because we covered so much territory. So apparently Ryan Coogler is going to be spearheading some sort of X-Files reimagining or reboot sometime in the near future. So
Fuck yeah, man.
I mean, I love Ryan Coogler. I don't think he's ever done a bad movie. Even though I wasn't wild about Wakanda Forever, I still thought it was a well-made movie, and I love his Creed and Fruitvale Station.
And X-Files had the show for a while, and then made 2 movies, right?
Yeah, the show, 2 movies.
And then a revival.
Yeah, that came back for 2 seasons, yeah.
Okay.
10 and 11.
And then, did they end it? Did you watch the second season? Because I know we watched the first season of the revival.
Yeah, and in my opinion, it wrapped up pretty well. Like, a lot better than... It felt like a Twin Peaks situation, where I was like, yeah, that still didn't wrap everything up, but it felt like a better wrap-up than the one we got back in the day.
Okay.
So I was happy with it. I thought especially season 11 was really good. Like, it felt like it really fell back into X-Files form.
Back to formula.
Yeah, because 10 was hit and miss.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I wanted to briefly mention, just because I think we need to, but I don't think we need to go on too long about it, is we talked about how Funko about a year ago bought Mondo, the poster and vinyl collectibles company. They do
toys.
I mean, I've been obsessed with their artwork, just seeing it on social media for years and not even always realizing it was from Mondo. But some of my favorite like alternative posters for movies come from Mondo, and I have a couple. I think my Pan's Labyrinth is a Mondo steelbook that has Mondo art on it.
Dope. I'm pretty sure they made the Beetlejuice poster or puzzle. They make
it looks
a lot
like
of
Mondo
cool stuff.
Yeah. So
we have a bunch of Mondo vinyls at home.
Yeah, they started out in the closet of the Alamo Draft House and grew from there. And they were bought from the Alamo Draft House by Funko about a year ago. Funko, I had recently mentioned in a previous Chop Talk, had to literally destroy like 30% of their inventory because they are losing a shit ton of money. They're not doing too hot. And so part of their cuts to try to keep themselves afloat was basically gutting the Mondo team. Specifically all the people who started the company and were in charge, pretty much all of the poster division. And so it's left the whole thing kind of in limbo as to if the company is going to continue. They put out a statement saying that, no matter what, they're going to find a way to truck forward and keep making cool stuff, whether that's through Mondo or if they're going to start a different company and a different brand. Recent reports from Funko have come out saying that they don't intend to stop the poster division, but if they removed all the artists or the people in charge, like who knows if that's actually gonna happen. So
it's gonna be classic posters but with pops.
They already do that.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. So here's the deal. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a very short period of time, and I'm going to say that as somebody who collected Funko and who has since stopped collecting Funko, there's a reason for that. There's a reason they're losing money, and it's because they've oversaturated their market. You can't have hundreds of thousands of Funkos for literally every single franchise. The fact that it was collectible and that it was like very rare that your franchise got a Funko or got a series of Funkos was part of the allure. It was part of what made it cool. It was like, oh, I have this Funko and it's one of 400. That's dope. That makes it, that adds value, especially for the people who like that franchise. But when every single franchise gets tens of thousands of, regular classic characters, you're waiting for all that stuff to end up in a landfill.
Not only that, but then they get alternate fucking outfits or versions of those same characters.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot. Didn't Funko, so they did bobbleheads, right? And that had a rise, and then that kind of started to taper off, so then they lucked into pops.
Yeah.
And then that obviously fucking was meteoric.
Yeah.
But now we're going... So didn't they learn from the bobbleheads?
Apparently, I mean, none of these companies know what the fuck they're doing, and
they're this generation's Beanie Baby.
You think so?
I think so.
Big fad. That convention that I went to in Stockton recently, almost the entire convention was just tables full of Funko Pops that people weren't buying and people couldn't get rid of. So
you had a yard sale a while back, and you got
got rid of. So
Some kids excited about.
so yeah, I mean, I think I fell out of it at a very like common time. There were a lot of people who were losing interest in Funko at that time, and I think that it was a good time to get out. I still have quite a few of them that I'm basically looking to get rid of.
Some of them here.
Yeah,
I have a bunch of my Spider-Mans in a box somewhere.
yeah, I'm not mad about having some of them because we've got Hitchcock back here. I think that one's dope. We got Cthulhu up there, and I have a couple at home that I still want to keep just because I still think that they look fun. Like they had a good time making that design, and it's different and it stands out from some of the other ones. But like, I mean, I got rid of all of the Stranger Things ones. Like, how many different versions of 11 do you need in a Funko Pop form, right?
I mean, you can
In
say
a
the same thing
hospital
about the show.
gown. With long hair.
With a
Eggos.
blueberry waffle, with a chocolate chip waffle. But yeah, anyway, that's all I had to say about that. Not a huge news week, but some things did happen. But
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah, you're so welcome.
Go see John Wick 4.
Go see John Wick 4.
Go see John Wick 4 and stay tuned for trivia coming up right meow.
I mean, go see Shazam! Fury of the Gods, please.
Ooh, no. No, want to.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
Before we get started with Trivial Pursuit, we had a bonus question from last week. Anthony, please remind us what that was.
I asked y'all Chuckle Fucks last week, Le Planète de Sang, which is known in English as, or in the U.S. as Planet of the Apes, was originally released in the U.K. under what title? You guys had some guesses. Do you remember what they were?
Sure don't.
Fuck.
All I remember is that you guys didn't nail it, but you were circling around it. The answer is, in the UK, it was called Monkey Planet, which is pretty offensive because monkeys and apes are not the same thing. And I think that Caesar and crew would be pretty pissed off about that.
Apes strong together.
Also just weird because the title in French just literally translates to The Planet of Apes. Just call it Planet of the Apes.
So, yeah, why?
Yeah, why did you have to switch it to Monkey Planet?
Monkey Planet. That doesn't sound cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a attraction at like a Boomers.
Well, also sounds like the SEO would get mixed up with Monkey Island.
Yeah, because SEO was a thing when this book came out in the 50s or the 40s or whatever.
What's Monkey Island?
Monkey Island is a game that was LucasArts made. They made a series of them. Very popular, like point and click adventures.
It's about discovering the secret of Monkey Island.
Does that have anything to do with Monkey Ball?
No.
Oh, okay.
What about Monkey Bone?
I don't think so. That was
What about
Henry Selick.
What about a brass monkey?
That funky monkey?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you guys the question for this week.
Please do.
So this is continuing on the train of the book, The Planet of the Apes. So Pierre Boulle, the French author who wrote the original Planet of the Apes, is perhaps better known for what 1952 war novel that inspired a 1957 Best Picture winning film?
All Quiet on the Western Front.
That's a guess.
I'm going to second John's guess.
Can you second that guess? Well, for anybody who's a little sleuthy and maybe following me on Letterboxd, they'll see that I watched this very 1957 Best Picture winning movie a couple days ago. Because I was like, I had no fucking clue that those two stories were by the same person.
Me either.
And yeah, anyway, I'll let you know next week, and then I'll recommend you go check out the movie.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and get started with Trivial Pursuit Horror Movie Edition. We will read a category and then go in a circle, reading them to each other, with me to John, John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me. And our first... You won last week, yes?
I did. I think I'm still streaking.
More or less. Because my episode got lost to the ether.
Yeah, okay, but now I've streaked long enough after that it's a new streak.
Yeah, but if I would have had my momentum, it's a whole
He's a
thing.
blue streak,
Yeah.
speeding by.
This
Sonic
is,
the Hedgehog.
This is a sequel to the previous streak. It's a streakquel.
Gotta give it to him. John,
Yeah.
hit us with that first category.
The category is monster.
John, what is the surname of the doctor with which Dr. Frankenstein is forced to work with in Bride of Frankenstein?
Oh, I can see his
35.
face.
I didn't understand any of that. Who's the doctor with which?
It's the doctor that he works with who like forces him to
Makes
do
the-
shit. Yeah.
Tiny people.
Victor.
It's Pretorius.
Pretorius B.I.G.
He's on a roll today. I could see his face in my head. Just couldn't get there at the name. Anthony, what is the name of the pet cat resurrected in Reanimator from 1985?
I was thinking you were getting cemetery.
Yeah.
Cemetery.
I was going to say, take me to church.
Why?
Get me to the church. No, I can't. I'm never going to be able to think of the other cat's name.
Who's that cat?
Pyramid cat.
It's Psst.
Boom. Boom.
I'm going to say that it is Scruffers.
Is that right?
Scruffers is definitely not right. It is Rufus.
Rufus.
Oh, so let's not go down that dusty road.
I was pretty damn close. Tone.
Kind of were.
For your freaking bats category in The Wolfman from 1941. What character finally stops the Wolfman? Is it, you have multiple choice here, A, Sir John Talbot, B, Gwen Conliffe, C, Frank Andrews, or D, Colonel Paul Montford of Montford and Sons?
I'll go A. Talbot. Right?
It is indeed Sir John Talbot, the father of protagonist Lawrence Talbot.
Defaja.
Right. So at the end of round one, I'm on the board?
Yes.
I'm on the board?
Okay.
And we're moving it to
Gore/disturbing.
John and Slither from 2006. The parasite that infects Grant is what kind of creature? There's somebody named Grant in that movie.
Must be
Yeah, you have to chop that right out.
Is it like a worm?
It is an extraterrestrial.
Michael Rooker.
No, dude, he's human.
Extraterrestrial. I hardly know her.
Anthony, in the Midnight Meat Train from 2008, what organ is removed from protagonist Leon Kaufman to ensure his allegiance?
His kidney.
It's a tongue, brother.
Okay.
Penis.
Bemis.
We're not playing that game. I haven't seen that in a while.
What, penis?
Penis.
Yeah, a penis. And you're right.
Moving on. Tone. In Teef from 2007. What is the name of the Christian abstinence group that protagonist Don O'Keefe, because it rhymes with teeth, is a spokesperson of?
That's still like top 5, one of the best things I've ever said.
What's the Christian abstinence group called that she's a part of?
Born Again Virgins.
Ooh, so close. It's just called Promise.
Oh.
Like, promise you won't bite my dick off.
All right, John, hit us with that recap of the score, because I already forgot.
It's still just you, brother.
Oh,
So
shit.
one for you and 0 for both of us?
Yep.
Holy cow, what a week. And we're moving into
Psychological.
John. At the end of The Invisible Man, 1933.
Boo.
What form is the dead Dr. Jack Griffin in? Is he invisible or is he visible?
Ooh, I got a 50-50. I am going to say that he is visible.
That is correct.
Yeah. How would you know? How would you know if he was dead? If you couldn't see?
Maybe that was a...
Sequel bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Whom Norn. Anthony, for what facilities What the fuck is this question? For what facilities around the world are the characters in Cube from 1997 named?
Prisons?
It is indeed prisons.
That was a very strange question.
The wording, yes. It
Yeah.
should be like what facilities are the
But
characters
you
from
guys are on
Cube
the
named
board.
after?
Yeah.
Why must word like DMV?
Yeah, I despite that, I knew what it was trying to get to. Tone for your Brainworms category. What actor played the titular character in Jacob's Ladder from 1990? Can you remember the man who was in Jacob's Ladder?
Well, I think it was Tim Robbins. You would be correct, sir.
It was indeed Tim Robbins.
Right on. All right.
You got two,
Cool.
we got one.
Perfect. And we're moving into
Paranormal.
Paranormal.
John in Paranormal Activity Foe from 2012. Wyatt Nelson is revealed to be what character from Paranormal Activity? Duh. Just asking for a first and last name. If that helps.
I'm reaching back into the old bag of tricks, baby.
Okay.
Okay. Into the old prison wallet.
Dr.
Okay.
Charles Fuck.
It is Hunter Ray.
Ooh.
So just right there.
Dude, so close.
I saw some moths fly out when you pulled out that joke.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Anthony and Starry Eyes from 2014. Who is the roommate of Sarah? Aaron, Carl, Tracy, or Danny? 25% chance.
Aaron?
It's Tracy.
Yeah, I'm not doing too hot, guys. It's because I had that really bomb joke about the streak wall at the beginning.
It was
Fuck
beautiful.
myself. Wasted all my energy. Tone, in your paranormal question category.
Mhm.
What E.T., the extraterrestrial actor, also appeared in Ouija, Origin of Evil from 2016?
Oh, fuck. What's his name, though?
Long neck is fuck boy.
Ooh, what is his name? Henry?
Maybe.
Houdini?
Is that your final answer?
Oh, man. I can't think of it. I know this fucking stupid face.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Elliot.
I personally
He was
think
in
he's got-
Bly. No, he was in Hill House. Was he in Bly?
He's
Yeah, he's in Bly too.
He's in both, yeah.
Yeah, he's the uncle.
he's a regular Flanagan collaborator.
Shenaniganer.
Yeah. Shenanigan. I don't like that word. That word.
Why? He shenanigans with him.
It just feels very, very weird.
Okay, well. Henry Cavill.
Well,
Toot toot.
you were halfway there. It's Henry
Henry
Thomas.
Thomas, a double firstie?
Yeah.
I was going to say, think about English muffins.
I was gonna say, think about tank engines.
Right
A
on.
lot of Thomases. You just didn't get that one.
Okay, great. So I'm at 2, and you guys are at 1?
What was the last question that was just asked me?
You had Paranormal Activity.
And you said that.
Yeah, it was a weird ass name, so it was definitely not me. You didn't get yours either. Yeah, so we have not moved. No
you.
progress is made.
Okay, we're moving into Killer.
Yes.
John, what kind of critical reception did Peeping Tom from 1960 receive when released in theaters? Positive or negative?
That would be negative.
That is correct. The negative backlash essentially ended the career of director Michael Powell.
Yeah.
That is a stupid fucking question.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the
But hey, it
some of the
happens.
way some of these questions, and I feel like these pop up in a lot of trivia games because I noticed this in the Red Letter Media thing too. Is they'll have a question where it's like, well, you wouldn't have included that if the answer wasn't like negative. Like it's I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
Anywho, congratulations, John.
I'm still not in a great place here. Anthony, the star of Maniac from 1980, Joe Spinelli, also did which of the following on that film? Direct, co-write, co-produce, or compose the music?
I don't know. I'm going to say he co-wrote.
You would be correct. He did co-write the screenplay.
Nice. So is there any chance that I could?
Yeah.
So if I get both of these and you get none of your next two right, we could tie.
No. You have 2 now, right?
You
Did I
have
get
2.
one earlier?
I have
Oh,
2.
okay. I thought I was sitting at 1. Okay.
You have 2, he's got 2, and I got 2.
Yeah, so as of right now, we're all tied.
So I can still win it.
Okay.
We also still have
We'll see about that. Tone,
International.
in your killer category?
Yes.
What actor played Detective Donald Kimball in American Psycho from 2000?
Oh, fuck.
Don't get him confused with Richard Kimball.
Come on. Harrison Ford?
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
I was about to just read you the answer. What actor played Detective Donald Kimball in American Psycho?
Dude, I don't even remember there being a fucking detective. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Yeah. Blink and you'd miss them. But not really. They're in a decent amount of the movie.
Tony Danza.
Hold me closer.
It wasn't a friend. It was a Willem Dafoe.
Ah.
And he's actually been recently doing all of the looking back on it at his famous roles because he has a new movie or a new show or something coming out. And one, he is hilarious and weird as fuck. And 2, I totally forgot he was in American Psycho, and the only reason I remembered was because of that video that I watched recently.
Yeah, I still can't picture it. Anyway.
2's all
tied at
around.
2, yeah. All right, John.
International.
Rec 2007 makes use of what type of filmmaking style?
Would
Get
that be
wrecked.
would that be the found footage?
That is correct, John, for 3 points.
All right, I've confirmed that I get to be a tie in this shitburger of a trivia round.
Kill confirmed.
Anthony, what is the name of the first chapter in the book written by Amanda Rigetti in Deep Red from 1975?
Wow. That's a hard-ass question, dude.
It is.
Have
How?
you seen Deep Red? How does he get found footage?
Yeah, how the fuck do you get Wreck was what type of movie? And
I got
get
a
what
first
was the
and
name of
second
the
name.
first chapter of the book that the character... yeah.
I got
Anyway.
in 3 questions before that. I got a first and last name of a random character that showed up in 2 different Paranormal Activity movies. I'm not here for this. My trivia card was shitty.
Yeah,
argument.
if you made this trivia game and you're watching,
Is it
we're coming for you.
Hasbro?
The first chapter is called My Big Fat My
My Big Fat Italian Murder.
My Big Fat Deep Redding. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that the first chapter is called The Beginning.
Part 1.
It is House of the Screaming Child. I don't know how you would have possibly not known that.
Wow. Tough
So,
break.
Tone in The Eye from 2002. Nope. Where is protagonist Mun from?
Earth.
Can you narrow it down just a little bit?
Planet Earth.
Can you give me a territory, a principality, perhaps?
I don't fucking know, dude. It's South Korea.
It is Hong Kong. So where does that put everybody point wise?
Down 1.
That means I won.
Damn.
Why are you so disappointed?
Because I won on some fucking bullshit.
A win's a win, dude. You think he would have been like, I won on bullshit? He would have been like, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
I'm
very.
sequeling or whatever.
No, and to be clear, I like I said, I'm not saying there was any trickery on your part. Congratulations on the win. I'm saying whoever designed these cards, I'm coming for you.
I'm sequeling for you.
Let's not get into another Tugger situation. Okay. I'm done embarrassing myself for season 5.
Congratulations on your win,
Congratulations.
John. Thank you for officially breaking his streak wall. And we'll go ahead and get started with our main discussion after a quick break.
Oh, just wait till the streak strikes back.
Oh,
Baby.
Join the creep cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the creep cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
You want to see something really scary?
welcome back. We're going to get started with Planet of the April, right? Is that? Okay.
Yes.
Fucking nailed it, bro.
And we're talking about Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So if you don't
Rise
know,
from your grave.
this one was directed by Rupert Wyatt and stars James Franco, Andy Serkis as Caesar, and Frida Pinto, and then John Lithgow. I think I'll just end it there because those are kind of the main.
The main folks.
Yeah,
the
I
main
mean
players.
Brian Cox and Tom Felton, I guess,
Yeah.
are people that you might also recognize or know from this movie. And this one is supposed to be a prequel of sorts to the original set of movies taking place on Earth before, I guess, spoilers, if you haven't seen Planet of the Apes or know what that whole thing is, before the apes took over the planet.
Yeah, so
And they hint at it. There's a rocket that goes into space later on in the movie, and they briefly just mention it kind of in the background. And then later in the movie, that rocket is lost in space, which is what happens at the beginning of the original Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
yeah, when this first came out, like I didn't have a lot of familiarity with the Planet of the Apes franchise. I just remembered that as a kid, it used to freak me out because I didn't understand that it was people in costumes. I was just like completely blown away by how they were able to train apes to do to like ride horses and do all that shit. Like,
How are they talking?
Yeah, how are they? Yeah, I didn't understand how any of it worked because kid brain, and also just because the makeup isn't half bad, at least in the earlier original Planet of the Apes movies. But in this one, they decided to go full CG with the
Mocap.
apes. Yeah, mocap.
Yeah, they pushed some boundaries with mocap in this one, and then they pushed the boundaries even further in Dawn.
Yeah, and I think that the way that all of these like big motion capture movies kind of tie together is interesting to see, because obviously on this you have Weta Digital working on the effects. They also worked on the effects for Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. And so Andy Serkis obviously came into the fold here because he had the experience playing Gollum and the experience playing Kong in Peter Jackson's King Kong movie. So he already had ape training.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Jaffa and Silver, sorry, getting mixed up with my own last name.
The writers.
Yeah, the writers, they also have gone on to write all of the Avatar movies,
Oh, shit.
along with James Cameron, and they and Weta Digital has gone on to work on the Avatar movies as well.
Again, pushing the boundaries of mocap.
Yeah, and using a lot of, I think, the developments from these movies to further improve what's happening in Avatar.
I believe that Dawn is the first one to use motion capture outside.
Yeah,
if
so-
I'm remembering correctly.
So in this one, they mostly use it for the Golden Gate Bridge scene, but this is where they finally like figured out how to have multiple performers. I think they could have up to 7 performers capturing all of their motion capture at the same time, and then also they were able to do it outside. Yeah, which was a big breakthrough for them. So they weren't confined to studio space and things like that. But
now they can do it underwater.
But Jaffa and Silver, who wrote this, they said that they actually prefer to think of it as more of a reimagining than a prequel. It does have a lot of hints and elements that could potentially tie it into the original Planet of the Apes, but they more wanted to say, let's take the DNA of the original series and spin it into something that's more applicable to, a modern day and a modern audience.
And little did they know it would
Yeah.
be even more applicable after Corona.
Yeah, and so they had seen some articles about chimps who had lost control and badly harmed their owners, which is something we talked about for Nope.
Yeah.
With the Gordy's
Eating
Home
faces.
stuff.
Yeah.
Chimpanzees and great apes in general can obviously be very scary. I think people underestimate them because for the longest time in the 80s and early film, they were more of like a playful, put some clothes on it and put it in a costume and have it
Dunstan
do
checks in or whatever.
yeah, exactly. And people don't
MVP.
realize that they are just pure fucking muscle and crazy aggressive and territorial in real life. In this, they had the benefit of not having any real apes on set, but having actors.
Yeah, and one of them who's also kind of a dick.
Yeah, so the basic premise of this movie, if you don't know already, is that James Franco and Co. Is the company called, what is it called?
Genesis.
Genesis, yeah. Very original. They are working on a cure for Alzheimer's. James Franco has a personal connection to this because his father, played by John Lithgow, is suffering from Alzheimer's. I think this whole element is very strong. I love John Lithgow. I also think that any film that tries to portray dementia usually freaks me out because it's one of those like big fears of mine is that it could happen to any of us, and unfortunately it does happen to a lot of people, and so it's very sad, and he's desperately trying to figure out a cure for it before his father is too far gone. They are experimenting on apes that were, we have this opening that shows
Somewhere in the jungle.
Yeah, shows Caesar's mother. Is it Bright Eyes? Yeah.
That's what they end up calling her,
Yeah, which is a reference to the original. I mean, pretty much every name in this movie is a reference to either a character from the original series or a producer or a writer or basically anybody who was involved got some sort of name or mention in this. But the mother, she's taken back to the lab, experimented on with this possible cure. They see that it
112.
has the kind of side effect in the apes of increasing their intelligence. It is revealed that she had a child. She's killed in the lab, unfortunately, and the child is Caesar. And James Franco is given the choice. Basically, I love the moment when the primatologist guy is like, I've already put down, I've been forced to put down like 12 apes or whatever already. You can either put this guy down or you can take him home and like take care of him. So Franco's given the choice, and he decides to take Caesar home and raise him.
Quickly realizes that he inherited what they put into his mother and has increased intelligence.
Yeah, so we get basically a pretty quick moving journey of Caesar kind of at first having a great old time living as the human boy of James Franco, and then eventually he starts to, as he grows older, have this realization that he is not a human being, and because he's never been exposed to other apes or chimpanzees, he is very confused about what his place in the world is.
You get so much fucking emotion from this character. It's ridiculous. I mean,
I love
think
the scene where he's like, what is Caesar? Like
when they're at the park,
Yeah.
in that mirror, that scene, and because of what they do with mocap, you are able to get all of Andy's emotions and facial expressions and everything, and it works so good. But also, you don't get that in the other movies. Like in the old one, it's really about the humans, and I feel like in this movie, it is about Caesar.
Yeah, and that's the big change that this movie makes, that the director and the writers really wanted to kind of drive home with people, is like, we want you by the end of this movie to understand that this was like, you weren't supposed to be rooting for the people, you're supposed to be rooting for the apes, and this is really their story. And I think that's a really cool angle to take, because they are kind of treated as like at least in the first original Planet of the Apes, they're treated as like the bad guy,
the villain,
the villain of the movie, in some respect or whatever. But in this, I think it's also insane that they knew how important it was going to be to capture the actor's performance, so they were just like, oh, we need to invent completely new technology for rendering the eyes so that we can really capture the emotion in the eyes, so we can make sure that there's functioning tear ducts and creases around the eyes, and finding that balance between okay, well, a human face and a chimpanzee face are not the same. How do we find some middle ground where we can still translate the emotion of Andy Serkis and these other apes, but also have it not have people lost and suddenly being like, that's not a real chimpanzee? Because the other struggle is like, all of the apes in this movie are computer generated, so you have to pretty quickly, I think it's pretty ballsy that they do this, they right off the bat show you CG apes in the jungle. They're just like, here's the apes, and so that way you get acclimated to them pretty quickly. And I remember before this movie came out, I was really kind of nervous about that. I was like, I don't really know how they're going to pull that off and if it's going to be convincing. And after a little bit, your brain kind of just totally gets used to it, and you stop really thinking about them as CG characters.
And there's some parts that look so fucking real, especially when they like do close-ups of the hands. Like you can see how leathery the skin is, and it looks real.
Yeah.
Sometimes at a distance, the apes and when they're running around and stuff don't always hit that mark, but it still looks pretty good.
They find the right balance that, say, something like the Lion King remake doesn't
That's
find,
exactly what I was about to mention.
where they're still able to emote in a way that feels human while remaining realistic enough to feel like this could be an animal.
Another good example, I think, is when James goes to pick him up. He's like, here's the money to Brian Cox. He's like, I'm taking Caesar. And Caesar like turns around and like closes the door, and you can see Caesar like, obviously I want to go with you, but I have to sacrifice that to take care of these other apes.
Yeah.
And you could see all of that in his face, and I was like, holy shit. They did a great job with this animation and capturing, like you said, Andy Serkis's emotions.
Yeah, and the way all of the fur looks and everything, and it just keeps getting better as the movies progress in this reboot franchise. But I think really that's where the huge challenge must have been, because also it's not like something like King Kong is a giant ape, but he really acts like just a giant gorilla. So really the challenge is just like, how do we make the upscaled size convincing, but outside of that you're just trying to represent a gorilla. In this, with Caesar especially, and then later with more of the characters as they're exposed to the ALZ 112 or whatever, and they get smarter, is Caesar is not just a chimpanzee, he's a humanzee. He because of his intelligence, that's what the director said in the commentary, is they called him a humanzee because he's somewhere in the middle.
And I think they do a good job of bridging him having human attributes, but then also incorporating, like, and I don't know if this is accurate, but the chimp or the ape hierarchy and how all that works, because they all kind of still follow him and they do this handout thing. And so I think it's a good blend and makes sense to call him that.
Yeah, and things with, the way he stands and his posture. He in some parts is more human-like, and then when he needs to be is more chimpanzee-like, and he's able to go kind of back and forth. And later on in the movie, when he pulls the one guard or the one worker guy like up against the bars, the director pointed out that is a moment that really exemplifies what differentiates Caesar from just a normal chimpanzee, because the Frida Pinto character, she says earlier, she's like, oh, chimpanzees can be really scary and they can be really dangerous. And the director was saying that like a regular chimpanzee in that moment would have grabbed the guy and completely ripped him apart.
Caesar shows restraint.
But because Caesar is able to show restraint and composure, that's showing that his human side, and it's showing what he's learned from the humans that he's grown up with, which is compassion and obviously his intellect of knowing, like, if I do this, I can get the thing that I need.
Right, so it's not an aggressive act like it would be with another chimp.
It's calculated. It's also learning from his previous mistakes. The reason why he's where he is at is because he literally could not control his animalistic instincts and bit that homie's fingers clean off.
Well, so that was something where they struggled with whether he should completely bite the guy's finger off or whether he should just kind of skin it, and he ends up just kind of skinning it, like it doesn't get completely bitten off, and it's because they felt that if he had taken the finger completely off, the audience would have seen Caesar as a villain at that point. And so that was another thing the director talked a lot about, was how do we show Caesar being dangerous, because we need to set up why these apes are going to be a threat to humanity in the future and why we should be intimidated by them when they, have the big escape on the Golden Gate Bridge and everything, without making them seem like villains, without making them seem outside of, your Koba or whatever, who is supposed to be like, and even there you understand because you see that he's been heavily experimented on for his entire life.
And he's been conditioned to be more like callous to what's going around him.
He also doesn't have the upbringing that Caesar had.
Yeah, which is something that I forgot watching the sequels, where they become much more a duality type thing, where you got Koba versus Caesar, like kind of vying for alpha status in the tribe in the future movies. And I had forgotten that a lot of their differences come from their upbringing. Yeah, Koba grew up in a lab and being experimented on and brutalized, and Caesar didn't. And then you really get to see like different shades and nuances to all of these apes that really makes them feel much more like real characters than James Franco and Frida Pinto do in the movie. I think they're just pretty blah throughout the entire movie. Lithgow stands out. I think he gives a really great sad performance, but it's really the apes that shine, because then you have Maurice, who
the gangster of love.
Yeah, who has like kind of this knows sign language, but not to the extent that Caesar does, and is kind of like the more chilled out, wise sort of confidant of Caesar. And then you have, I think it's Buck, the gorilla.
The gorilla.
You would expect when he lets the gorilla out that the gorilla is going to completely rip everything apart and attack him and destroy everything, and then you see that he just wanted to be able to run around the place, and Caesar is able to analyze all of these apes and know like what their motivator is, and use that to form them into a hierarchy that works for his plan, which is their escape and their freedom.
Right. So eventually James Franco uses ALZ-112 on his father. This is something that he had to inject to cure his Alzheimer's, and it does to a certain degree, but it's also a virus. And so because of that, it is very dangerous, and John Lithgow's antibodies attack it and beat it. And so then the Alzheimer's starts to return. So to correct that, James Franco's character creates ALZ-113, which is an aerosol. And when they administer it to Koba, I believe, one of the techs does not have their mask on all the way. So now this...
We all know how important that is, right?
Mm-hmm. We do, yes. This virus has now transmitted to a human that does not have Alzheimer's, and it affects humans differently than it affects apes. And so the apes increased intelligence and are fine outside of that,
because their immune systems are able to combat the viral component.
Right. But humans, it turns into like a fever with blood pouring from your orifices, or so we're led to believe. And that's kind of where the movie goes. Caesar ends up taking these aerosols and then spraying them throughout his community.
Yeah, I guess in the original treatment, it was just going to be that his blood was able to like pass it on to the other apes. So at one point when I think it's Rocket bites him early on, when he attacks him and rips all of his clothes off and stuff, Rocket was going to get some of his blood in his mouth and then suddenly start becoming smarter, and Caesar was going to realize what was up and start like, and basically like cut his hand and share his blood with all the apes. They do it a lot more like, cool action movie where he comes in with the canisters and throws them in and gets everybody gassed. And I like that moment where like they're all sleeping when it happens, and then they wake up, and it's like how insane that must be for an animal to like all of a sudden realize the situation, because it almost feels like they're all waking up and realizing how shitty their situation is.
It's like being taken out of the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. And they're suddenly just like, oh shit, I am in a prison and I need to get out. And I think that's just that whole concept is really, really interesting and cool. And then also like that the virus obviously helps, if we are saying we're leading into where Planet of the Apes, the original, is, that kind of, obviously gives an explanation for why the playing field would have at least been somewhat leveled for the apes, is that almost all of humanity seems to have been wiped out by a virus.
Yes, at the time when I saw this movie, I didn't really think anything about it. And then watching it now, after having dealt with Corona and how quickly that shit can spread and become this big pandemic, it hit me pretty hard. And I was like, fuck, that sucks. Like, this has happened. Not to that degree, but still, I was like, wow, this is pretty impactful even a few years later.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened with coronavirus, with COVID. Maybe they were just trying to make some apes hella smart and got out. But in terms of the actual like ape population, there was some research that Rupert Wyatt put into it to actually kind of figure out how realistic it would be for a group of apes in the United States to band together and have some sort of fighting force. And in his research, he found that there are about 70 to 80 in the entire country, there are about 3,000 great apes that are in labs across the United States. So there's 3,000 there. He said that there are also several facilities that house about 70 to 80 apes, like sanctuaries and stuff in the United States.
We have a sanctuary that it doesn't seem like a lot, but then a character is like, there's hundreds of them, like just kind of off the cuff. And so we don't really know how many are in the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And then they go to the lab, get more apes, and then they go to a zoo.
I forgot about the zoo, and I was like, oh,
but
that's
then,
cool.
When do those apes get the aerosol? That's the part where I was like, you kind of shot yourself in the foot there.
Well, if they go to the lab first, they could have taken canisters.
But they just like push the gates down, and then the apes come out. I mean, I guess we don't have to see it all, but I was like, well, that doesn't a ton makes sense.
Well, and I'm not 100% sure in the sequels if the idea is supposed to be that every ape in the colony is a hyper intelligent ape, or if it's just our main crew, and because they're still apes, they're able to like play both fields, interact with humans and be the alpha. Caesar's still able to be the alpha of a group of apes, even if they're not hyper intelligent, and being apes, they are already very intelligent.
Right.
So could be something there. I'd have to, when we get around to the sequels, that might clear that up a little bit for us. The climax on the Golden Gate Bridge, which, I mean, really, I've said this before, I think, for other things, any movie that takes place in San Francisco it's got my heart.
Yeah.
I love that they like planned it in the script to go, oh, well, it would make sense to set it in San Francisco because you have Muir Woods right there, and it's a perfect place for the apes to go. I like that it's apes not in their like natural jungle habitat, but they're kind of able to make it work in the giant redwoods. I love the scene when Caesar first goes and like climbs up the tree.
Yeah,
you get that really cool, like, again, Lion King style, like when you see Simba like growing up during Hakuna Matata or whatever, see him running up the tree and getting older, and then he mirrors it at the end, but this time he's got his whole army of ape brethren behind him. It's a really cool ending to the movie. Originally, in the original ending, Will, James Franco's character, was supposed to die in the woods before the end of the movie. In this version, it's left ambiguous, and we're left to assume that he probably died because of the virus that's spreading and killing everybody. But in the original, after Caesar says that he is home, a bunch of military guys were going to show up in the woods, and they were going to try to shoot Caesar, and James Franco was going to like throw himself in front of the bullets, sacrifice himself. But they last minute decided to change it and flew everybody back out a month before the movie was released, and reshot the ending.
I think that's a better choice, especially because Buck does that, like 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
So I think it would have pulled that punch a little bit. And, we like ambiguity around here, around these parts. But I love that Caesar continues to show humanity, even among the apes, even after humans have wronged him so much, where a lot of times these apes will go to attack humans that have done nothing wrong in Caesar's eyes. And he's like, no, stop. Don't hurt them. Like, they're not our enemy. Let's go. These people are trying to hurt us. Let's fight them. Or like, just because some part of this species did something bad to us doesn't mean that every part is bad.
Yeah, he's seen both the good and bad of humanity, and he understands the nuance there. And he also, because of his intelligence, is able to see the bigger picture, which is because most of these apes, if they weren't hyper intelligent, would just be like, oh, these people are attacking us, or these there's humans in our way, let's fucking murder them. And he's like, no, our goal is to get to the woods and get to freedom, and that's the big goal, and that's the dream, and like we just need to stay focused on that. And he's able to lead this whole army out. And the Golden Gate Bridge scene, I still think, is pretty fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the fact that they built a 400-foot set,
wow,
and shot on it of the Golden Gate Bridge, and it looks great. And I love when when Caesar like gets all tactical and he is like, okay, I mean, he doesn't say it, but he's basically like pointing and doing hand signals for the orangutans to go and swing underneath the bridge, and the chimps to go up high where they can climb because they're more natural high climbers, and then for the gorillas to like barrel through toward the middle, like when they're pushing the truck through the fog and stuff. Very cool. Like a lot of inspiration from other films outside of Planet of the Apes. Rupert Wyatt pays homage to Gladiator when Caesar first goes out into the enclosure, and he's like going through the tunnel, and then he goes out into the enclosure and it opens up and there's all the apes inside. It's supposed to be like Gladiator. Dodge and his friend bringing girls into the facility at night is a reference to Jack Nicholson's character sneaking his girlfriend and friends into the hospital in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
And we get the line that's got to be in every one. Like, get your paws off me, you damn dirty ape.
Yeah, and
or he doesn't say damn, huh?
No, he does.
I thought he said something slightly different.
I think it's just his poor American accent that confused you. No shade to Tom Felton. He's doing his Tom Felton thing, just being a dickhead in another role. And this was pretty quick off the heels of Harry Potter, so I could see how... I remember when this came out, I was like, oh shit, he's going to get typecast as this character isn't. And instead he got typecast as nothing. Just didn't work. But I do love that scene, though, because Caesar ends up like standing up full, upright, strong when he first speaks, and it's Tom Felton's character who's like kneeled down, and it's like this change in dominance between the two of them. Also, the way that they do Caesar's voice and that reveal, like that moment, no, still gives me chills. And they cut the music at that part, and it gets like totally silent, and you can just see the shock on Tom Felton's face. And then even later when the other guy is trying, I think it's Rodney, is trying to tell he spoke, and Frank is like, what do you mean? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And then later when Caesar like leans in and whispers in his ear, and you can tell he's just like completely bewildered by the fact that Caesar can speak. But
he's all, I fucked your bitch.
Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear.
The other thing that they did to, I think, kind of bridge the human performances into the chimp performances or the ape performances is they didn't just use ape sound effects. Like all of the sound effects that you hear are the actual actors like making the noises. They just pitch corrected based on the type of ape and like, mixed in some elements of actual ape calls and things. But they felt like people would become desensitized and bored if it was all just like stock ape noises, and so they just had all the actors making the noises and doing the calls and stuff so that you could differentiate the different voices and stuff.
That's cool.
I was like, that's just such a cool detail that like I wouldn't have thought of. I would have been like, oh, we just got to get some like authentic chimpanzee calls in there and stuff, and we'll be fine. Somebody that I do think definitely deserves a shout out. I know we talk a lot about Andy Serkis being like, the big player in these movies. Terry Notary.
Yeah. He plays Koba, yeah?
I don't think he plays Koba in this, but he plays a bunch of the apes.
Yeah.
And he has not only done motion capture on this, but pretty much every other big budget movie that involves motion capture, including all the Avatar movies and everything. He's been the main motion capture stunt coordinator. And I think above Andy Serkis, he probably deserves more props because he pretty much trained everybody on this movie in the ape acting. And he had
ape school.
Yeah, and he is the one who kind of like really nailed this in. And a lot of the people were kind of switching ape roles depending on, what the apes needed to be doing and stuff. But I just noticed in his Wikipedia, I'll pull it up here real quick to see some of the things that he's worked on. But he was a stunt performer in 2000's The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. He was a stunt performer in Planet of the Apes, Tim Burton's version.
Fuck yeah.
He was
the best one.
He was a stunt performer in Superman Returns. He was he was a Silver Surfer mocap performer for Fantastic Four. He was a mocap performer for The Incredible Hulk from 2008.
So he's had some ups and downs.
But I mean, these are all, obviously like big CG characters. He was a Transformers movement coach, Avatar, Attack the Block. He was a movement coach. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Tintin, Cabin in the Woods.
I love Tintin. I was really bummed
the Hobbit movies, Kong Skull Island, Avengers Infinity War, and Endgame, the Lion King remake. Nope. He was the mocap performer for Gordy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Groot's mocap performer for Thor: Love and Thunder. So
What? It's not Vin Diesel?
You mean it's not a real tree man? But yeah, so he deserves a lot of the credit, and I think it does make me a little bit sad having listened to the commentary, and I mentioned this to you, that Rupert Wyatt obviously was very excited about this franchise, and he really is, like, you know, outside of Amanda Silver, and I think it's Rick Jaffa, being the screenwriters who did continue on to do the sequels to this and are doing the new one.
Oh,
have
really?
written the new one, yeah. He is largely responsible for getting this off the ground, getting this franchise off the ground, this new version of the franchise. And he had obviously a lot of ideas about what he wanted to see in sequels, and you know, listening to that commentary that came out before the sequels came out, you know, with him having no knowledge that he was going to be replaced.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
have a different director come in. But it turns out that it was mostly time constraints. That this first one did do well enough that they like quickly greenlit a sequel, and he didn't feel like he had enough time to really flesh out his ideas for the sequel and get it done. So they pulled Matt Reeves, who was working on a Twilight Zone movie that he was going to direct.
And this would have been pretty close off of Cloverfield, yeah?
Yeah. Pulled him, and he did the next two. He's not doing the newest one, but this got me to look into the newest one, and I didn't know until I looked it up this most recent time that it is confirmed to be a sequel to War for the Planet of the Apes, set I think like 12 years later, written by the same screenwriters. Does not involve Andy Serkis, but you know, he wasn't. I mean, Caesar's gone. It's kind of the continuation of Caesar's story and how he became like the Moses figure for like the future generations of apes, and it does seem like they're moving closer to lining us up with the original Planet of the Apes.
Crazy. If they do that, that's a long ass fucking franchise, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I meant to put this in Chop Talk, and I totally forgot, but Serkis actually talked about the new movie recently. I guess he's seen it, and he said that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is going to blow people's minds. He said, from what I've heard and what I've seen, there's some amazing concepts. So
Wow.
he's excited about it. But
Knowing that it's part of it, I'm also excited.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be very interested because it's been a while since I've seen the sequels to these, and I remember always thinking that the Matt Reeves entries in this were, you know, leagues better than Rise. But
Rise
now
does feel very much like a prologue. Like it
Yeah.
feels like here's set up just for the next big thing. Not that it's a bad movie, because I think this movie's great, but it does feel like a movie of setup.
Well, and it also, like, you know, a lot of it takes place indoors, in labs, in houses, and he does a lot, or they do a lot with the camera, and there's a lot of like cool movement with the camera, and they're really trying to utilize the space. But once you get into the woods and you're able to expand out and really get into you know, a more open world ape thing, it's just, you're better off that way.
Yeah.
So,
From what I remember, Dawn was my favorite of the three.
Yeah, I enjoyed Dawn quite a bit, and I enjoyed War as well. I saw it opening day in the theater, but I'm excited to tackle those in the next couple of weeks. We do get a little Marvel-esque after credit scene that takes place after like the very first cut to black screen of credits. There's like a couple of things here and there, and then they show an after credit scene of the next door neighbor, the one who's been a dick the whole fucking movie,
Who got sneezed on by the sick technician.
Yep, and he is also bleeding from his orifices, and he's headed to New York City.
Yes, he's a
yeah, we find
pilot.
out because he's a pilot, he is the perfect
Patient Zero.
patient zero to spread this virus all over. And then we get the really awesome, artfully done end credits that are, like you said, just showing the virus spreading all over the place. And I think it's like a great way to show. It reminds me of how in the Edward Norton Hulk, they show like the whole origin and backstory just in the opening credits.
Yeah.
And then they get to the movie. And like I love when they do that. And the director said that was pretty much just the art studio that put together their credits was like, hey, would it be cool if we did this? And he was like, yeah, that's awesome. And like worked it into like, okay, well then I don't have to do as much work to like explain the virus thing and just show it in the credits and show where this can go. So
I think it was perfect. I didn't want more of it. I think we got just enough to be like, fuck.
But yeah, Caesar's my homeboy. Apes together strong.
Yep.
Caesar family.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's gonna wrap it up for our first Planet of the Aprils episode. Next week, we are going to be tackling Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Dawn O'Keefe of
stay
the Planet of the
tuned
Apes.
For that. If you haven't already, please check out our bonus episodes over on Patreon. And I have been Tone.
I've been John.
And I've been a damn dirty ape and an internet darling, Anthony.
Thank you for checking this episode out. We will see you next time.
Keep it creepy.